The next speaker is Daniel Zamarbide. Daniel was born in Spain, and he obtained his master degree at the Institut de l'Architecture de l'Université de Genève in 1999. In 2000, 1 year later, he co-founded Group VIT in Geneva, and in 2012, BUREAU, also in Geneva, and since 2015 with the second location in Lisbon, as far as I know. Since 2014, he teaches at the EPFL in Lausanne, currently as co-director of Super Studio with Sébastien Marron and Martin Fröhlich. And as we can read on your homepage, BUREAU is a project of Daniel Zamarbide, Karine Pimenta, and Galliane Zamarbide. The practice hides under its generic name, yeah, that's true, a variety of research activities. BUREAU is a furniture series, is an editorial project, a design and architecture team, and they are special practitioners. Okay.
Thank you. Great, so I will be speaking tonight on behalf of the three partners of the Bureau, so Karine Pimenta, Galliane Zamarbide, and myself. It is in English, as you can hear, and if everything goes well, it should be even a little shorter than the 6 minutes and something that you was planned. Yeah, there we go. So I'm doing an 81% presentation. So instead of presenting 1 or 2 projects in the short time of 6 minutes and something, I would rather like to present some thoughts. These past 2 years, let's say 21 and 22, have been, as we know, very complex ones, and as we sadly know as well, change has by now become very, very presently perceptible. I don't need to expand on the diverse, violent conflicts going on the world, war and its consequences being just one of them. And as one of the philosophers that I particularly enjoy these times, whose name is Franco Berardi, he believes that we have already entered in a sort of like a third world war, but that its visible form is somewhat more difficult to grasp than the previous ones. Sorry, I'm not being very funny. Neither do I need to insist on the climate change, to which we do not react so much, and how it forces us to modify our living and building attitudes. Other ongoing necessary revolutions are like the Me Too revolution, are the most obvious icons, among others, of what we're going through. But I would like to share tonight some feelings of how these times affect us very briefly in the office, in our daily work, and how much they are able to provoke reactions, maybe modify some of the trajectories in which we have installed ourselves. Obviously, our reactions are not the direct answers to the very complex socio-cultural shift that we are going through. The one first feeling that the actual context has brought is to be in peace, at least we're starting to be in peace, with the fact that we actually do not build so much for many circumstances. The percentage of our constructed work in terms of architectural edifices is actually quite low, and we start to think, or almost be sure, that we want to keep it that way. There are several reasons for that, and they not only have to do with environmental preoccupations. Codes and regulations are part of the world that we don't want to be so much part of, as they represent regulatory authorities with which we are sometimes, not to say very often, in strong disagreement. We participate to other architectural actions and spaces, some of which Jill Stoner, maybe you know her work, has named minor architectures, and we very, very dearly recognize ourselves in that term or definition. So the second feeling that we have is related to history and how parts of it have been made invisible. A very important exhibition of our recent culture has been Women in Abstraction, a quite complex history of abstraction of women artists. This show in Pompidou that we visited with Galliane opened the door for us to rethink and re-see the stories and histories of architecture and how they could be reopened to be narrated in a slightly different manner, including other actors and actresses that have been fundamental to its development in time. The one trio I can mention very quickly here is the trio of Janet Sobel, Lee Krasner, and Jackson Pollock, story that you might know. Of Janet Sobel, the art critic Clement Greenberg would write that in the 1940s he and Jackson Pollock had noticed one or two curious paintings by a primitive painter, they said, Janet Sobel. Greenberg described Sobel's work as the first really all-over one that he had ever seen, adding that Pollock admitted that these pictures had made a great impression on him. Janet Sobel was a self-taught artist that found a short period of recognition in the late 30s. The term primitive is also obviously quite curious, since she was a full artist in its own right in that time. Lee Krasner, as you might know because she's a bit more well-known, was the partner of Pollock, her work being very widely overshadowed by her husband's short but decisive life in the art world. The series that she started in the mid-40s, around 43, 45, entitled Little Images Are Clear All Overs. A revised history is telling us these days that there was a very strong dialogue between the two artists' work development, but only one has gone through history as a pioneer, as we know. The first action painting of Pollock started in 1947. The same could potentially apply to the beautiful collaboration of Lily Reich and Mies van der Rohe. Lily Reich is actually one of our important inspirations in the office. And there are quite good and logical reasons to believe that the great turn in Mies' work would come from this collaboration, that the freestanding textile and exhibitional architecture that Mies was able to observe and participate to in her company during the 1920s led to the Barcelona Pavilion in 1929, as we know, a free plan where the textile lines and surfaces so characteristic of Reich's work transformed themselves into the famous onyx and glass walls that have become one of the most important milestones in modernity in architecture. And I would like to finish this short note with a slightly deformed quote from Susan Sontag about the 81%, referring to the title of this presentation, hoping that this percentage will move very soon, urgently in the right direction. Here's the quote: 10% of any population is cruel, no matter what, and 9% is merciful, no matter what, and the remaining 81% can be moved in either direction. Thank you.